Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to Chelsea Fan TV and welcome to another Chelsea news video. First things first, guys, make sure you smash the like, subscribe if you're new around here, and as always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And I tell you what, it's a bit of a quiet time at Chelsea now, isn't it? Not too much going on, which makes a bit of a difference. Nah, of course not. Of course not. There is plenty going on. All the latest in Chelsea's search for a new manager. Kieran McKenna wanting to wait for Man United, which is his preferred choice. Fabrizio Romano reporting that Enzo Maresca of Leicester City is super keen, in his words, on becoming the next Chelsea boss. Worryingly, Thomas Frank is still on that shortlist, and there's still an unknown fourth candidate, whilst Matt Law reports that Roberto De Zerbi hasn't fully been ruled out of the running either. Chelsea want to push ahead with a move for Crystal Palace's Michael Olise, regardless of who the next manager is. But let's get stuck into the managerial search. And obviously, Mauricio Pochettino left on Tuesday evening, announced by the club after just one season following the end of season review. And it's been quickly established that there's a four-man shortlist, unknown candidate, Kieran McKenna, Enzo Maresca, and Thomas Frank. Now, the news regarding McKenna is Chelsea obviously keen on him, but he's got interest from Brighton, who are believed to have interviewed him on Wednesday. Plus, Manchester United have reportedly decided to sack Erik ten Hag regardless of the FA Cup final outcome. And they would be interested in McKenna as well, who's a boyhood United fan, was a coach there under Mourinho and Solskjaer. And he, according to the Times, is prepared to wait to decide what Manchester United do in their managerial search once Ten Hag leaves, before deciding a decision to take on his future. And it's really important for Chelsea that I think that's why reports are saying they want to get a new manager in place before the end of next week, because they know that United are likely to have a vacancy and a lot of the candidates are going to cross over. They're going to be picking from the same pool of managers. Now, McKenna obviously would represent a huge risk. All these managers represent a huge risk. Chelsea want a young up-and-coming coach who they can grow with the club. In other words, they basically want someone that's going to buy into their way of doing things, is not going to have any pushback on it, is not going to challenge their authority and whatnot, and is just going to get on with the job and is just going to accept whatever players are bought in, and he's just going to have to make them work, which is why we're not being linked with any experienced managers, because this ownership don't want to appoint an experienced manager, which is why I still don't understand why I'm seeing defenders of the ownership. Look, I've praised them for things that they've done well since they've come in, the ambition they've shown in spending money, but they've also made a catalogue of errors and don't look like learning from their mistakes at all. The player identification on the whole has been pretty good. Their managerial ID has been shocking, to say the least. And the fact that Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart are entrusted with carrying out yet another managerial search after their failure with Mauricio Pochettino is quite something. What's mad for me is that, you know, Fabrizio reporting that Chelsea are taking their time to pick the best possible option. They're discussing all the possibilities. Two things with this one is, one, this is the problem when you've got too many decision makers at the club and each decision maker at the club is trying to push their preferred candidate. Well, let's remember, guys, that Stewart and Winstanley appointed Pochettino after the end of a thorough and extensive process. They interviewed him twice, assessed his work before hiring him, which I'm pretty sure of that. Then they watched him for a whole season whilst pondering what sort of style of play they should go with. They had early thoughts about sacking him. And then what reason does anyone possibly have for them to have a choice in who the next manager is going to be? And they've obviously got no idea what they're looking to do either. You know, they decided that Pochettino was the right guy, the outstanding choice in their words. And yet 12 months later, they decided that he wasn't the right strategic fit for the football club. Make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. These guys haven't got a clue what they're doing. They're making it up as they go along. And everyone's trying to push their preferred candidate, which is why there appears to be no obvious and clear front runner, because everyone is trying to push their own agenda. And this is the problem with too many decision makers at the football club. There needs to just be one or two people making decisions, not this whole going to a vote thing and then it goes to a majority and all this nonsense, because otherwise this is why you end up with it taking so long to make decisions, and you often come to the wrong conclusion because not everyone can agree on what to go with. You know, they can't stick with the direction they're looking to go in. They've clearly got no faith in their own judgment alone, and that's a scary place to be for the football club right now. These are the guys, by the way, who we're banking on to make key decisions in key moments to direct the future of this football club. and they haven't got an idea at all. They're a pair of clowns, and they should be straight out the door. They should be straight out the door, but instead they've got the full trust and backing of the ownership, which is a big problem. It's a huge problem, and the best chance whoever it is has got of succeeding is that they are liked by the new ownership. That's the reality of the situation. I really think it's as simple as that. As long as they're liked by the new ownership, that's it. And it's a nice idea. That Chelsea want to have faith in their sporting structure and whatnot. They don't want to tolerate coaches trying to assume more power just because they've got some good results. And look, it's a nice idea in general, but how does anyone trust the sporting directors or the hierarchy to have clarity over what coach they're actually looking to fit that model? It's ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. The accountability has to be higher near the top, not just near the bottom. And it doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like the only people that are accountable are the managers, and they're just used as a shield to protect from poor decisions that are coming from up above. But anyway, let's move on to Roberto De Zerbi, because he apparently has not been ruled out of the running, following his departure from Brighton. Obviously, for me, I don't see it happening, but if it can happen, it's probably the best choice of the bunch that we've got, even though I still think he's got a lot to prove. And, I think it would be too soon for him. I'm not sure it would be the right appointment. Given the pool that we're picking from, I feel that this is perhaps the best that, would potentially be available. But Matt Law reporting that Roberto De Zerbi would have to demonstrate that he could work within Chelsea's club structure with sporting directors Winstanley and Stewart to stand any chance of getting the job ahead of Maresca and Frank. And that's a big if, by the way, a big if. Of course, he adds there's been no confirmation whether or not De Zerbi is officially the fourth unnamed candidate on Chelsea's shortlist. Now, of course, there's a lot of people that are keen on De Zerbi, style of play, clear patterns of play, the fact that he's worked with Colwell, Mudryk, Caicedo before. But ultimately, the most important thing is, can he work within the club's existing structure? And I think there's a massive question mark over that. He left Brighton because he didn't agree with the direction the club were going in regards to transfers. Well, we operate a very similar model to what Brighton do. And I cannot see De Zerbi, who's very outspoken, keeping quiet, and just letting the directors go in the direction they want to go in, and him just accepting it. I find that very strange. And even if he were to get the job and he says he's accept that, I'd give it 6 months before he's publicly calling them out, and another managerial change could well be on the cards. But look, to be honest, we're none the wiser really as to who is the obvious favourite right now. And as I said, that's the problem that you have when there's so many different people involved in the decision-making process. But I think it is clear the club are looking to make an appointment by the end of next week. They won't want to miss out on managerial targets to potential rivals such as United. But it's an interesting search, isn't it? And it goes to show how far big clubs have fallen. That Chelsea and Man United have both got the likes of Thomas Frank, Kieran, McKenna on their shortlists. I mean, no disrespect to those guys, but these are the sort of names you'd expect to see on a shortlist for like a Crystal Palace job, an Everton job, a Brighton job, not two of the biggest clubs in the country. So it goes to show how they've fallen a long way. And it also goes to show that why is there obsession now amongst big clubs with young up-and-coming managers? Everyone's obsessed with finding the next Arteta, the next Xabi Alonso, rather than focusing on what would be best for their football club. And best for Chelsea right now is to get an experienced head through the door and steady the ship, instead of throwing another inexperienced head into a mix of wholly inexperienced players and setting an unrealistic target of finishing in the top four. It doesn't make sense. But then nothing Chelsea Football Club do right now seems to make any sense whatsoever. But moving away from the managerial thing, just a little bit of transfer news. Chelsea is set to complete the signing of 18-year-old Nigerian striker Ibrahim Hafir Umar, I think is his name, following a successful trial at Cobham. They're going to decide whether he's going to go on loan to Strasbourg or stay as part of the club's academy. So another teenager looks like he could be making his way to the football club. Highly unlikely, I say, to make any appearances for the first team, but there we are. And then the main transfer news coming out last night is Chelsea are still keen to pursue a move for Michael Olise, despite the uncertainty surrounding the managerial situation. Joe Shields known to be a big fan of Olise, and if Joe Shields approves a player, I want that player at Stamford Bridge. Now, does Olise make sense? No. Is it necessary? No. But despite all that, he is a top player, and we need to bring him to the Bridge. You know, we've got an abundance of right wingers, and in particular with Esteval Willian and Kendry Pires coming in 2025. It means that if Olise were to come this summer, one of Mudryk, Madueke or Sterling would have to leave the football club. I think it's too early for Chelsea to give up on Mudryk. I don't see them getting a return on that investment. I think Madueke's shown promise, and it would be unwise, in my view, to get rid of him now, which would leave Sterling as the obvious candidate. But the big stumbling block there are his massive wages and the fact that he's quite happy in London and prepared to stay at the football club. So it's going to be interesting to see what Chelsea do. But apparently it's between Chelsea and United, with Arsenal and Liverpool also interested. The Champions League football could be a draw. But given we almost signed Olise last summer, given that his brother's at the academy, given he was at the academy earlier in his career, surely that must count for something. And of course, Joe Shields there as well. Could you just imagine a three behind the striker of Olise and Nkunku and Cole Palmer? It would be quite the spectacle. But I think there's a long way to go in this one. Yes, it's greedy, as I said, but when top players like Olise come along, you really can't afford to say no. You have to do whatever you can to get it done, even though we're well stocked in that position. But yeah, guys, that's just my thoughts on the latest Chelsea news. Make sure you smash a like. Make sure you subscribe if you're new around here. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And I'll catch you again in another video soon. Up the Chelsea.